Am I the asshole for punishing my son for throwing away my husband's Bible? My husband, 37, and my son, 16, fight a lot. And I tried to intervene, but my husband asked me to stay out of it while he works it out with my son. My husband came up with a bunch of nicknames to call my son. It all started when they fight, and in each fight or argument, my husband comes up with a new nickname to call my son till they fight again or till my son apologizes. Nicknames like dipstick, stone cold embarrassment, A-clown, imbecile, dweeb, etc. Since their latest fight, my husband has been calling my son ass clown. My son spoke up about how annoying it was and threatened my husband that if he doesn't stop, then he'll throw away something of his. Days ago, my son had friends over while I was out. Clearly, my husband called him ass clown in front of them, which caused a huge fight between them. My husband later called me panicking, saying my son took his Bible after their fight and refused to give it back. I went home and asked my son what happened. He told me my husband embarrassed him by calling him this nickname in front of his friends. I told him I'd talk to my husband later, but asked him to give back the Bible. He said he no longer had it because he threw it out. I was in shock. I told him this was offensive to his stepdad and his religion, and he should have never resorted to this type of retaliation. He said he already warned my husband that he could easily go get a replacement from the church. I got mad because this was a line he should not have crossed. Throwing out stuff is never okay. I punished him and took his allowance for the rest of the month. My son argued about how unfair this was and that my husband got away, though he started it. I refused to argue because he was just lashing out and not ready to listen. I exited the room, then spoke to my husband about it. My husband promised this will all stop if my son gets properly punished for what he did, and I let him know he got his punishment. But my son wasn't having it. He called his grandmother, my ex-mother-in-law, and she tried to come to my home to yell at me, but I refused to let her in. She texted that I was being unfair and just wrong for punishing my son. I replied that he did something worth punishing, no matter who started what. Throwing away stuff is never okay. She kept calling, but that was it for me. So, am I the asshole for punishing my son for throwing away my husband's Bible? The top comment coming in with 50,000 upvotes. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. Why would you take your husband's side over your son's in the first place? Secondly, your husband sounds like a toxic and abusive adult. Lastly, you're turning a blind eye to abuse. You're allowing for trauma to take place in your son's life. I am so glad his grandmother is standing up for him. Sadly, it sounds like she's the only one in his corner. Next comment, 18,000 upvotes. I love that OP edits her post with, I just want to point out, and her edits literally make her sound like more of an a-hole for defending this BS. And if she's the one working and her husband is just a mooch and horrible stepdad and that mean to her son, WTF is she staying with him for? Did she think that would make people feel bad for her? Makes me feel like she's even worse and a bigger a-hole than I thought before. All right, and here is OP's edit to her post. It says, edit. I just want to point out that 1, I never agreed to my husband's way of trying to work his issues out with my son, but I got convinced that they both need time and space to be able to get these issues resolved without me intervening. 2, the punishment was solely because he threw the book out. I am still not okay with this whole nickname calling, despite my husband saying that it's some form of teasing. I'm 100% on my son's side in this. 3, I did try to find solutions to these problems that kept occurring and even arranged for family therapy, but neither of them agreed to go. My husband offered to take my son to church, but my son refused. 4, being the breadwinner and working long hours, I'm always tired and struggling to keep everyone satisfied and happy. It's too much pressure to be keeping an eye on every little thing in the house, and no one is willing to sit down for a heart-to-heart conversation. Next comment, 23,000 upvotes. Nicknames like dipstick, stone cold embarrassment, ass clown, imbecile, dweeb, etc. Nicknames are like buddy, pal, and sport. Those are insults. You need to learn the difference. You're the asshole, and so is your awful husband. Tell him to go read Matthew 5:22. Next comment, 10,000 upvotes. Obviously, he doesn't need the Bible. It's not working. And my vote. I'm going to go ahead and say that this mom is the asshole. I would never tolerate anyone talking to my son like that. That's just not okay. So what do you guys think? Has anyone been in this situation before? Let me know. Am I the asshole for telling my son I was disappointed after he and his wife lied about my grandson's birth date? My son, 23, and his wife just had a baby boy. Everyone is overjoyed and excited, but there have been some issues that have risen recently. When my daughter-in-law was pregnant, I suggested that I host a welcoming party for my grandson right after she gets discharged from the hospital. I've made arrangements and even emptied a room for them to stay in, but for some reason, she was against it and said she'd rather spend the first few weeks at home with her newborn. Not only that, but she said no to the welcoming party. My husband and I talked to my son, and he said, we'll see. But just a couple days ago, we found out that my daughter-in-law had given birth 2 weeks ago, and no one knew about it. My nephew told me, and I immediately called my son. He confirmed it. He and his wife lied, then hid the date of birth from the family. I told him this was not acceptable, lying just because they didn't want a welcoming party and love and support being given from family. I told him I was disappointed because, for one, he ruined our welcoming for our grandbaby, and also I invited family members and they're all rightfully disappointed as well. He said it was his last resort after I kept pushing and made his wife uncomfortable, but that was not appreciated because we were just trying to celebrate the new family member in a proper manner. We had an argument and he ended the call upon saying I ruined his joy for his newborn. My husband started texting him since he stopped replying to our phone calls and is now threatening to block my nephew for tattling. But I think that my nephew was decent enough to inform the family. Otherwise, God knows how long my son and his wife were just going to hide their son just to keep us at arm's length. We've always been kind and welcoming to my daughter-in-law and her family. I don't know why she would do this and disrespect the family like that. On the other hand, some family members see it as a justified action because we insisted on the party. So, am I the asshole for telling my son I was disappointed after he and his wife lied about my grandson's birth date? And the top comment coming in with almost 30,000 upvotes. Also, this post was 5 hours ago and it already has over 4,000 comments. Okay, so top comment, quote unquote, welcoming party is a nice way of saying, quote unquote, exposing a newborn to all sorts of diseases during a pandemic. You're the asshole, always and forever. You are not entitled to put this child in danger. Next comment, 8,000 upvotes. Honestly, where I'm from, you don't visit a baby until it is past 2 weeks, not to give it or the mother any diseases, regardless of the plague. Even 2 weeks is when you're really close, like a close cousin. Next comment, 12,000 upvotes. You're the asshole. It's not about you. Also, she was against it, but said she'd rather spend the first few weeks at home with her newborn. Not only that, but she said no to the welcoming party. My husband and I talked to my son, and he said, we'll see. Mom said no, so you went behind her back to your son, which is disrespectful and insensitive to her wishes, and he clearly wasn't on board either. It sounds like they felt pressured into lying about it after you were so insistent on the party. Also, again, he ruined our welcoming for our grandbaby. Wrong. You ruined the welcoming for him and his wife. You should feel horrible for that and for putting them in that position to begin with. Next comment, 6,000 upvotes. They obviously pushed it so hard that son and daughter-in-law were convinced they would just be there waiting at the house when they got home from the hospital. OP needs to work on respecting boundaries if she ever wants to have a close relationship with her grandson, and will have to get used to a lot of disappointment if they continue their a-hole behavior. Next comment, 7,000 upvotes. You're the asshole. I can see why they didn't tell you. Next comment, 2,000 upvotes. You're the asshole, right? I'm just wondering how hard OP was pushing to the point they actually had to hide the birth from everyone. Like, holy schmamoli. Also, wondering if the we'll see the kids posting on Justin Mill and entitled parents. And my vote, sorry, Grandma, you are a super duper a-hole. That's my vote. What do you guys think? Has anyone dealt with a mother-in-law like this? Or does anyone have a mom like this? Let me know.